All right, here's the day you've been waiting for. Our fearless prognosticator, John Wogge, is going to tell you exactly what's going to happen in the Senate race, exactly what's going to happen in the presidential race. He's had a pretty good vote record.
Sure has.
And he's analyzed what's out there, and he's going to tell us. And in addition to that, Hugh Ross is going to tell us what kind of a planet we live in. He's fascinating. As he tells us, he expands our mind to see the whole universe. And then he places this Earth in the middle of it and tells us why we live in this incredible planet. Man, it's going to be exciting today. Well, one day before Americans go to the polls, and once again, that clown who's in charge of our, whatever you call those people, FBI, has become part of the election headlines. This time he says, well, the investigation, we scanned 650,000 emails and we didn't find anything. And we're not going to do anything about the Clinton Foundation because the Justice Department is under the heel of the president and they want a Democrat as their candidate. And so we're not going to stop that. But I stuck my foot into it. Now, under the risk of having my foot blown off, I'm calling it all off. I mean, this is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard of.
Can you even scan 650,000 emails?
It's absurd. The whole thing is absurd. It's absolutely absurd. And if, I don't care who gets in there. I think that the Democrats and Republicans will be after him. The thing they're bringing out about him that was so tragic. You remember that Valerie Plame thing? She was a so-called working with the CIA undercover, and somebody, quote, outed her. And they had, so Comey puts his buddy Fitzgerald in charge of the investigation. So they go on and on and on, and they discovered there was a man in the Defense Department who did the leaking. They know exactly who it was, but they went after Scooter Libby and kept after him until he made one false statement, and on that they got him for perjury. And they knew exactly that Scooter Libby wasn't the one, but they did it anyhow. I mean, it was outrageous what they did. Took away that man's law license. I understand he's finally got it back, but I mean, it was just, it's horrible. And this Comey was at the center of it. So I'm a fan of the FBI. I really am. I think they're a wonderful organization, but this man is a disgrace. Terry?
Well, the Clinton campaign says the fact that they're not investigating now is proof that she did nothing wrong. But the Trump campaign says it shows that Comey has botched the investigation again. Dale Hurd has the story.
FBI Director James Comey told congressional leaders in a letter, based on our review, we have not changed our conclusions that we expressed in July. One source says the new batch of emails contained duplicates the FBI had already reviewed. Donald Trump attacked the move.
Right now, she's being protected by a rigged system.
The Clinton campaign, which wants the email scandal out of the news, simply said it's happy the matter is resolved. There was no public comment from the candidate who spent the weekend campaigning with celebrities.
It is a choice between division or unity, between strong, steady leadership or a loose cannon.
But Clinton still faces questions about her handling of her government emails. The FBI announcement came on the same day the New York Post reported that Clinton told her maid to print out classified emails. And the FBI investigation into the Clinton Foundation is reportedly still ongoing. The Trump campaign went all out to reach evangelicals Sunday by sending video messages to churches, warning Christians that they're under attack and that Hillary Clinton will make the situation worse. While Clinton has had the edge in the Electoral College throughout, the polls in many swing states are extremely close. And electoral guru Nate Silver warns Clinton is just one state away from losing to Donald Trump.
I want to be the president for all Americans, those who vote for me and those who do not vote for me.
On November 8th, we are going to do something so special.
Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, both candidates have been hitting the key swing states in the last days before the election. And one of the most important issues will be who will turn out to vote. David Brody looked at that question in the state of North Carolina. And CBN's Jenna Browder talked to Republican vice presidential candidate Mike Pence. He says the Trump campaign is about ideas, while the Clinton campaign is talking about insults.
Mike Pence on the campaign trail. With just hours left until Election Day, he is making his closing argument.
Let's go get it done, Michigan.
His running mate also trying to stay on point, something we talked about on his campaign bus.
And recently we've seen Donald Trump at the podium, almost coaching himself.
Stay on point, Donald, stay on point.
What do you make of that? What are your thoughts?
I just think one of the most endearing things about Donald Trump, which will make him a great president, is that what you see is what you get. The people know exactly where Donald Trump stands, and they know what he thinks. And I think the day that he becomes president of the United States, the American people will find his candor refreshing, and they'll find his broad-shouldered leadership refreshing.
What do you make of Hillary Clinton's closing arguments? You know, she likes to say, when they go low, we go high.
Well, I've always been a little dubious of that assertion, because candidly, since I joined this campaign, as Donald Trump is talking about ideas, Hillary Clinton, her campaign, seemed to only be talking about insults. It really does seem like now, even at the end of the campaign, it's again a campaign of insults against my running mate. And I think the American people really see through that.
There's so much animosity on both sides. How do you see this playing out? Do you foresee riots, protests come Election Day?
Oh no, the American people are expressing themselves with great enthusiasm and great energy in the electoral process. And I believe that when we elect Donald Trump as President of the United States, we're going to begin to see this country come back together again.
There's no doubt prayer will be a part of that journey. Pence and his wife Karen both say they have some requests.
But I'm always quick to remind people that our families, his and mine, carry a unique burden in these campaigns, and so that's how I always ask for prayers, to remember our families who shoulder the burden every bit as much as the candidates do.
People tell us all across the country that they're praying for us, and I just tell them we feel it.
For the Trump-Pence ticket, North Carolina is a must-win battleground state. So what are the odds? For that, we turn to my colleague, David Brody.
Jenna, those odds are all going to depend on turnout, not necessarily turnout of Trump supporters here in North Carolina, but a lack of turnout on the other side. Hillary Clinton's support among black voters doesn't appear as strong as hoped. African Americans came out in historic levels for President Obama. But so far, early voter turnout here in North Carolina is way down, about 16% lower. Given the sizable African American population in the Tar Heel state, a significant dip would be problematic for Clinton. But Renee Boston Hill, chairman of the Pitt County African American Caucus, says enthusiasm is higher than people think.
I have worked the polls every single day since the election started. I try to spend at least a couple of hours out there. And I can say that there's been a heavy presence of the African American community here in Pitt County getting out to vote.
Another concern is possible intimidation. The NAACP is suing the state for allegedly canceling voter registration of mostly black voters. Boston Hill says her group remains focused.
Our efforts have always been to keep it moving and to get the vote, to get people to the polls and get the vote out.
Meanwhile, conservatives are working to win black voters too. This ad campaign targets black millennials, hoping to convince former Bernie Sanders supporters to board the Trump train. It's all playing out in a key battleground state that will likely determine who wins the presidency. David Brody, CBN News in Greenville, North Carolina.
All right, now we're going to get the definitive word for you. You've had all these other prognosticators, you've heard the pollsters, but now we have our own CBN News political editor, John Weige, with his prediction. John, good to see you, buddy.
It's great to see you again.
All right, tell me. All right, what's the story? What, you add up, instead of the general election, you add up the Electoral College, and how does it look?
It looks tight, Pat, and we've got an electoral vote count that could go anywhere from the winner getting 340 votes to a 269-269 tie. I have it at 270 for Trump, 268 for Hillary Clinton.
Wow. Now,
and you know, I'm looking here at a Real Clear Politics average of polls, more than a dozen states here, and every one of them is 6 points or less, many of them in the what would be the margin of error of 3 points.
What states are you giving Trump to make that 270?
I'm giving Trump Florida, and that's really the key at this point. He's got to win Florida, I think. North Carolina as well, Ohio, Iowa, and Nevada.
The last two, apparently, he's got pretty solidly. Nevada, I guess, is breaking toward him.
You know, it's a tight one. That's probably the iffiest one in addition to Florida, because Florida comes early in the evening, and if he's not winning there, he's got to either win Michigan and Pennsylvania, or Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, or Minnesota and Pennsylvania. He's got to have a combination.
You know, I think so. He's going to win Michigan. I you know, years ago campaigned very heavily all over.
With you.
You remember? Well, there are huge pockets of conservatives and evangelicals. You got Macomb County. You got the folks up there in Grand Rapids. I mean, it's the whole thing. If the vote is suppressed, or at least not enthusiastic in Detroit, then he'll win Michigan.
Well, and that's a possibility, Pat. Right now, Michigan looks to be about 4 or 5 points, but we just don't know where the last movement is going to go. And I saw you off the top of the program when you were talking about the FBI decision, and that throws another monkey wrench into it. It's very possible that could create a backlash where people who are sick of corruption, and I'm living out in the heartland of America right now in Kansas, and I know there are people who are sick and tired of the Washington corruption, and this idea of drain the swamp and it's a rigged system is really having some sway. It's almost like there are two Americas where one side doesn't get it at all. That, you know, Hillary didn't do anything on the emails, and then there's the other side that's saying Washington's a cesspool and has to be cleaned out from top to bottom, you know, and you've got both sides going to the polls in fairly big numbers against the other side.
You know, Trump was here in the Tidewater, our hometown, and it looks like he's going to sweep Tidewater with a lot of military. He's done a couple of military things here. I think he's doing a rally in Leesburg in Northern Virginia. Did you see? I mean, it looks like Virginia was out of reach, but what do you think?
It's 5 points in the average of polls. That's not really out of reach. In Senate races, we've seen a candidate come from 9 points down and win. You know, so they are more scientifically and heavily polled now, so we have to take that into account. But it's not out of reach. Any of these that are 5 points or less could possibly go in either way.
Well, Florida is the key. It looks like New Hampshire now to get that 270, that you've got to get those tricky couple of delegates up in Maine, don't you?
You do. Maine has votes by congressional district, and so I've got one district in Maine, the second, going for Trump, which the polls show that happening right now. So that would give him one extra delegate, which if you're in a 270 to 268 race, that's critical.
Now let's talk about the Senate. The Republicans have got a number of Senate seats that are under fire. What'd you find out on that?
Well, you know, the Republicans right now have a 54 to 46 lead, if you count the two independents that always vote with the Democrats. So they've got 24 seats at stake this year to 10 for the Democrats. That's a huge mountain to try and climb. And yet, I've got them holding on to the Senate by a 52 to 48 margin. So I have them actually losing 3 seats, and the Democrats losing 1 seat.
You're going to have them losing what, Wisconsin?
I have them losing Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Illinois. Illinois is pretty much gone in the eyes of most pollsters.
Toomey, you think he's going to lose in Pennsylvania?
You know, I don't know. He came back in the last days, and the Ron Johnson pick is probably my most tenuous pick, because he has come from really the political dead to be back not in a dead heat with Russ Feingold, and they're tagging Feingold as an inside Washington lobbyist and everything, and it seems to be resonating in Wisconsin, which also could make a difference in the national presidential election too. So And I'm kind of tempted to switch my picks where I've got Nevada going Republican as a takeaway, Harry Reid's seat, and Wisconsin going Democrat, taking away Ron Johnson's seat. It may be flip-flopped, but the net result would be Republicans would still control the Senate by 4.
Of course, the Republicans going to lock on the House. They're not going to lose the House.
No, I've got them losing 12 seats, which would be they're up by 30 now, so they would have a 435 to, or I'm sorry, a 235 to 200 margin.
John, we will look with eager anticipation. John is calling 270 electoral votes for Trump. And,
which means it's lawyer time after that, probably.
Oh, my word. If it goes into the House, of course, the election would go to the House, and Republicans, hopefully, they have to vote for 1 or 2 or 3. They can't go pick somebody else, and it's got to be the winners.
Yeah.
They pick among the 2 or 3 top votes.
So it's a time for prayer the next 36 hours. I've been meditating on Psalm 37 for the last year, and it's like the Lord is in control here, you know.
Well,
so.
I think that's the key. I mean, he's the one that's going to decide
and
this.
And the wicked don't get away with it, according to Psalm 37. So you have to figure out who the wicked are.
Well, the unfaithful shall be snared with their own duplicity, and I think that's what we're going to see. Well, you can follow our election reporting online tomorrow night. Just follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Starting at 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll have live updates and analysis on the CBN News channel, and we'll also have a special election night update of the 700 Club tomorrow night at 11 Eastern on Freeform. Well, you'll be able to see that online as well. So, John Wogge, thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat.